Is that the Joe height already here? Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Sinclair, and I'm the proud MLA for Lesser Slave Lake. I'm also a former junior hockey player in the SJHL and super proud here to be here today to support the minister with any sporting event. For me, when I made a hockey team when I was 17 years old and moved away, I didn't just make a hockey team, it saved my life. So I believe in sports and I believe in helping kids. I'm honored to be here today to be the MC for today's announcement. I first want to acknowledge that Edmonton is on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional home to the Alexander First Nation, Alexander Nakota Sioux First Nation, Enoch Cree Nation, the Whitefish Lake First Nation, and the Paul First Nation. This land also has deep importance for the Métis people of Alberta, and I'm grateful to be here today. To kick off today's exciting announcement, I invite Alberta's Minister of Tourism and Sport, Minister Joseph Schow, to the podium.
Well, thank you for that warm introduction, Scott. It's a pleasure to have you with us today and to hear about your sporting journey as well. The people in your constituency are well served by you as their representative. And I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today. I'd also like to thank Robert Pollock, who's the Associate Vice President for Support and Recreation Services with the University of Alberta. And as Alberta's Minister of Tourism and Sport, it's a pleasure to stand before you today and reaffirm our province's commitment to supporting and hosting world-class sporting events. Alberta has a tremendous story to tell, one that's been around since time immemorial. It includes our rich Indigenous history, farm families, an energy sector that drives our economy, and of course, athletic excellence. That's why I'm excited that all eyes around Canada and around the world will be on Alberta as we welcome another 6 major sporting events to our majestic province, starting tomorrow with the 2024 Boxing Canada Cup. We will also be supporting the Canada Junior and Senior Squash Championships, Canada Cup Diving, Volleyball Canada Youth National Championships and Paris Super 6 event, World Athletics Silver Continental Tour, and mountain biking at the 2024 Canmore Canada Cup and Alberta Cup. These events will feature over 30,000 athletes from across Canada and more than 35 countries. With these events and the athletes they draw comes enormous benefits to our province and the local communities that will see people staying in hotels, dining in our local restaurants, shopping at our local stores, taking in our beautiful landscapes, and building a lasting sense of pride in our province. We are thrilled to share our province with visitors from around the world, showcasing Alberta as the premier destination to host national, international, and multi-sport games. All the while proving Alberta is the place to live, to play, and to visit. So let's fill the stands and cheer on Alberta's best athletes on hometown soil where legends are made. I'll now turn the time over to the Tracy Bednar from Explore Edmonton.
Just adjust the microphone. Thank you, Minister. I really want to thank you, Minister Schow, for inviting Explore Edmonton to join you today, and to MLA Sinclair. And thanks to the U of A, which is where I went to school, and such a great place to have this when we consider the athletics history of this institution. Explore Edmonton is really thrilled to participate in this announcement, not just for Edmonton, but as the minister mentioned, for communities across Alberta. And I really wanted to note that I think that this reflects the minister's perspective and the recognition of the value of tourism and sport. The minister has traveled across Alberta into our communities, and not to sit in boardrooms, but to actually participate in the events and to meet the operators of the tourism industry, and we really appreciate that. MLA Sinclair talked about the importance of sport to us as individuals and to community, and I wanted to really highlight the economic impact and the value of sport to communities and to cities. They bring in millions of dollars of economic impact. They bring the participants and the athletes, of course, but they bring their families, the officials, and sports industry leaders from across the world into our city. And as the minister said, they don't just participate in that sport, they stay in the hotels, eat, and just generally enjoy the sights of our communities. And we also use that to inspire them to come back and to visit. And this, of course, directly supports jobs. So just in Alberta, more than 50,000 jobs are supported through hotels, restaurants, cafes, transportation, and retail industries alone. And I wanted to give you an example of where it really hit home to me. The 2022 Volleyball Canada National Championships, which were just announced today by the minister, were with Edmonton in 2022, and we're so happy to see the investment for that to come back. In 2022, the economic impact of just that event was $32 million, where athletes' families came and spent the week here in our community. And major sporting events also put our province in the spotlight with those national and international spectators, but also by showcasing our cities through the photos that get distributed and television broadcast of the top tier venues that we have, like this one, and also our beautiful River Valley and other Edmonton sites. And just as importantly, events like this create energy and vibrancy for locals. Edmonton and Alberta loves its sports. We love to participate and we love to be spectators. And one proof point, Edmonton ranked second in Canada and amongst the top 50 cities in the world as a sports city under the sport hosting indexes. So thanks for the continued investment so we can keep that competition. And with that, I also want to acknowledge and commit that we as sports communities will continue to be excellent hosts and do our province proud. Thank you.
I'll now pass it over to Kevin, Press Secretary at Ministry of Tourism and Sport, to conduct the Q&A portion of this event. And thank you very much, Tracy, for the amazing words.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're now going to take questions from the media, starting with those who are here in person. No questions in person, so we're going to head to the phones, and it's one question, one follow-up. So, operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Matthew Black, Edmonton Journal.
Good morning. I was curious how these events will work with the policy regarding trans athletes. There are some sports organizations, who object pretty strenuously to your government's plans. Which policy would take priority here, the government's or that of the sport governing body?
Well, thank you for the question. As you know, the Premier announced that we will be taking steps towards a safety and sport policy in the province of Alberta. This is going to require a lot of work with our provincial sport organizations towards the implementation of this policy. It's definitely a fine balance that we have to find between fairness, inclusion, and safety. And so as we work through this towards the implementation and with the provincial sport organizations as they govern themselves and work with us to implement the spirit of the policy, we should have some policy and legislation, if necessary, introduced and ready for the fall. But with regards to these events, we work very diligently to attract these kinds of events to Alberta because, with as much humility as I can muster, no one does it better than the province of Alberta. And I think it's actually very fitting that we have this announcement today right here in the Dome at U of A, who I understand the men's volleyball team just won the national championship for youth sport, which I want to wish them a huge congratulations. That's a major accomplishment. I'm very proud of that. But as we work through this policy and make sure that we continue to be that premier destination, it's going to take time as we consult with the provincial sport organizations. But these events, they have a lot of their own. They manage and organize themselves, and we help facilitate it. So that's the role that the province plays.
And a follow-up?
Yeah, just just wanted to ask about costs, if there was any estimate on hosting costs for all these events, and who will bear those costs.
So the province supports these financially in other ways. We also work with our local partners to make sure that we can put on a world-class event. So the cost varies from one event to the next. But what I can say is the economic benefit is tremendous. I had mentioned this a couple of days ago, but since the new year, 2024, we've announced 12 major national, international sporting events. And we expect the economic benefits to be well over $100 million. And that's $100 million going into hotels, local restaurants, local shops, local economies. And these events, as I've just mentioned, are spread over the entire province. If I go back to my initial remarks, the Volleyball Canada Youth National Championship is here in Edmonton, and the World Athletics Silver Continental Tour is also here in Edmonton, but the other ones are in places like Canmore and scattered throughout the rest of the province. So it's really great to see these events coming here, and the rest of Alberta, rural Alberta, and the major cities getting to host them and see the economic benefits, because we have such amazing host cities, and when these events are hosted there, the local communities really roll out the red carpet.
Right. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Keith Drain, Edmonton Journal.
Hi, question for the minister as well. The list of events you announced seems like a great list. I'm wondering about what the government's position is on attracting some bigger fish. Not necessarily Olympics or in a World's Fair, but sort of some much higher profile events, sporting championships, for elite athletes around the world. Are those kinds of events something that the government's looking at?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The short answer is absolutely. We just saw announced a couple of days ago that we'll be hosting in May the WNBA. That's an incredible event. We hosted a preseason game with the NBA. I think it was 2 years ago, and it was just a stellar performance. And so when it comes to major sporting events, we do that on a case-by-case basis as we have opportunities to bid on these events. A great example would be the IIHF 2027 World Junior Championships that we just announced in Edmonton a couple of weeks ago. So as these events become available, we make those announcements and we support them however necessary. But we're in constant communication with national, international sporting bodies as we look to host things like Olympic qualifying events, exhibition events for professional sporting. So it's really we're open to all of it. It just has to make sure it's a good deal for the province of Alberta, and so we do that on a case-by-case basis. But I'm very excited about what we've already announced, and hoping to see some more great announcements in the not-so-distant future.
And follow-up?
Yeah, I guess in terms of bringing in some of those events, what is your assessment of the major stadiums in Edmonton and Calgary, and whether there needs to be major refurbishment or replacement to bring in some of those events?
Well, I'm happy to give you my opinion, but I defer you to what I've heard from the people who come here and host these events. We have the best facility in North America with Rogers Place. I have heard this from a number of people who come here, and when they have their events at Rogers Place, it's a beautiful facility. There's no question from what you see as a spectator. But the underbelly of that facility allows it to facilitate so many events, and it is a world-class event place. And so, in terms of the infrastructure, we always think that there's an infrastructure deficit. We could have more if possible, and would love to do what we can to work with sporting organizations to make sure they have what they need, and we're doing that. That's why we introduced our community facility grant program, that if Budget 2024 is passed, we will be able to work with communities to help them with their rec facilities. But when we look at bidding on sporting events, we always want to make sure we have the facilities to host them. And so, we also announced in Calgary not so long ago that we'll be working with them on the infrastructure surrounding the new event center Calgary. But these facilities make Alberta an even more attractive place to host these national and international games. And as we find more opportunities to build infrastructure and host games and host events, we will look at those on a case-by-case basis.
All right. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
There are no other questions in the queue at this time.
All right, that concludes today's press conference. Thanks you all for coming.
Thank you very much.